The idea of this dish is a tomato pickle-ish, sort of pickle-ish, chutney-ish. I got all of these beautiful tomatoes from a family member who lives out on a farm in Rosabrook, which is sort of, 15-20 minutes from here in Margaret River. And we don't eat a lot of tomato other than in cooking, so I need to do something with it. So I'm gonna make just a little bit because this will be strong taste, and so that's why it's not something you'd eat a whole lot of. So what we're gonna work with here is a focus on astringent and acidic spice. So those ways that we're typically a pickle, coded into that word is that it's going to be tangy, it's going to be punchy, it's going to be really high tone flavor, and it's going to work as an accompaniment. So that's how we're treating it. So black and yellow mustard seed. Thinking about garlic, I'm not sure. A strong white salt. I'm going to use peanut oil because I'd like a little bit of a neutral carriage. Grapeseed oil's too neutral. Vegetable oil is a little bit hard, and peanut oil has quite a lovely texture, and there is a recessed floral quality in peanut oil that the tomatoes will respond really well to. We need a strong white sugar, which I'll get from the cupboard. And I might finish it with a little bit of garam masala. Let me get my sugar and vinegar. Caster sugar and an apple cider vinegar. Now I'm going to put the caster sugar in a pretty little container, so it looks a little, so when we talk about the visual aspect of the spice, you'll get a little bit more of a cue. Okay, so vinegar, we'll do that in here as well. So what we're going to see is a lot of yellows and whites. Peanut oil. All right, let's talk about the visual, shall we? So just going to go over here. So what we have is we've got our yellows here. So the mustard seed, the yellow mustard seed, the vinegar and the oil. We've got the white, so the strong salt and the strong sugar. Mustard oil is a mustard seed, the black is a contrast, and then the red of the tomato. So you can see the red is like the star attraction. So this is really the aromatic component that's going to be pushed up by all the other aromatics underneath it. And then that earthy garam masala will just put a little bit of a lid on top. So you can see it looks like soil, it's going to compress the other aroma and just hold everything in there a little bit. Because white and yellow, when it comes to aromatic quality, denotes that sort of very driving aspect that will exit the mouth quite aggressively. And so when you have components that are working like that, so acidity, salts, the drive punches flavor, but it also, if it's not contained, disseminates it. And so disseminated flavor means that you're losing it here. So, we want to keep it all contained, which is the role of garam masala. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm actually going to keep the skin on the tomato because it's a little bit of texture, and I do like texture. It's my chopping board. Just in my own way here a little bit. A bowl for the tomato once it's chopped. All right, so just going to core. Now I'm not going to parboil them or anything like that because I do want to keep all that, sort of wet, sharp acidity and sweetness that tomato has, and that contributes to the high tone nature of the relish or the pickle. I think it's going to fall somewhere in between. I think it's going to be more aggressive than a relish and not as not as pickled as a pickle, because there's going to be no real like stewing time or resting time. Typically with a pickle, you'd let it ferment a little bit, but that's not going to be part of this process. Mainly because I have to film it in a day. So this is the sort of relish you could serve with hot meats, or wrap up in a falafel, or put in a veggie burger. It's not going to be ketchup like it's not going to be like a chunky sauce. It really is going to be more of a pickle. And just a rough chop. So how many tomatoes? I think this is like 5. Maybe I should weigh them for you. I'll weigh them for you. Like a pro. Okay, I'm gonna guess 380. Trav said 437. Oh, damn it. 570. All right, I was way off there. So about half a kilo, let's say. And then I'm going to do it in my little like crock pot, like Le Creuset. So these are great because they have a really nice way of conducting heat. It's not as sort of charcoaly or stir fry as the Kadai, and it's a slower, denser heat than even my frying pans, which are really beautiful frying pans. But this is sort of resonant, and I'm looking for that to pull this together. So okay, so I'm going to bring all this across. My little shop of goodies. Okay, now let's do that. So oil's going to go in, so all of that. So that's about a tablespoon and a half or so. I need to I'm just going to let that heat a little bit. I am going to temper these aromatics before I put or at least some of them, before I put the tomato in. I'm going to do the mustard seeds on their own. Stir the tomato through. Add the salt and the sugar and the vinegar, and then I'll sort of tweak it from there. So if you think about making a kind of a pickle, the reason I'm using mustard seeds is, well, mustard seeds make mustard, right? So they do, it's the tang and the astringent, sharp nature of mustard seed that makes it an aromatic so suited to this style of cooking. Using yellow and black mustard seed together creates a tiered quality in the nature of the food. So it creates a breadth in that sharp astringent flavour. So instead of being very piercing and thin, it's still quite strong and sharp, but it's through a broader expanse of the dish, which is important because there's no other real aromatic in here. Like there's no other actual spice. So I need that bed of astringency to feel full, not to feel too thin and sharp. All right, so I'm going to say 2 teaspoons of black mustard seed and 3 of yellow. That's quite a lot, and that would be that's going to be quite nutty and strong. And It's nice because then that sort of nutty quality in that seed brings out the peanut in the peanut oil. So that's the third component of the tier. That's the third structure. So it is actually quite complex already in that bed. I want it to get quite hot. Okay, can you hear it start to pop? So that's classic, you know, who doesn't love that popping mustard seed? Okay, so now that they're starting to pop, I'm going to put the tomato in. Oh, it smells nutty. And it's on the highest heat, so I do want it to come back up to heat. Because I'm going to do something a little unexpected actually, because that peanut oil did draw forward really the nutty element in the mustard seed. You could smell it. The astringent heat actually recessed, and I want that to be a bit more forward. So I'm going to top it with a little bit of mustard oil to draw forward some of the latent heat in the mustard seeds and to create just a little bit more. So it's not much, it's like a half a tablespoon, but just enough that some heat, some floral quality and some darkness is going to be re-injected into that masala. Taste it. Yeah, that's a little better. The mustard oil's there, the peanut oil's there, the nuttiness. The tomato is actually quite hidden by all the aroma, but it'll come forward when I add the salt, the sugar and the vinegar. I want that to cook for a few moments though. It's nearly there. I'm going to give it another minute or two. So what I'm looking for in cooking it out a little bit before adding the vinegar, the salt and the sugar is just to break down the structure in the tomato a little bit, because it'll give me a more immediate assessment of how much is enough and how much is too much. When you put masala into the bed of a dish before the produce has, or in the process of the produce breaking down, you're marching those two processes together hand in hand. But with something like a relish or a pickle, there is naturally the need to have the masala be the thing that stands to attention a little more. Like the flavour needs to be punchy, it needs to be quite aggressive. And so if the produce is already broken down, when I add the salt, the sugar and the vinegar in, it's naturally going to dominate a little more because it's stronger flavour. It's not going to disperse through the cook during the breakdown of the produce. Instead, it's really going to go and sit on top. And with a pickle or a relish, that's par for the course. It's part of what we're actually looking for. It's not so much about amalgamation. It's about, it's almost like playing dress up with flavour. We're dressing that tomato in a whole different outfit. So I think it's ready. So I'm going to start with, say, 2 teaspoons of vinegar, 2 teaspoons of salt, and 4 of sugar. It's not salty enough. 1 more teaspoon of salt. That's better. A little bit more vinegar, so another 1/2 teaspoon. Another 1/3 of a teaspoon of salt. So a relish or a pickle, you really can season it like this. It's quite different to having to kind of get the alchemy right in the beginning. You can play around with it quite a lot. I like that. And then I'm going to add like 1/2 teaspoon or sort of a large 1/3 of a teaspoon of garam masala, because I am missing a little bit of spice in there. I need to bring that back to life, which is what garam masala is. Well, it's not so much it brings it back to life, it's that it puts a lid on the more excited aspect of the dish, and because we're putting a lid on it, what's at the bottom becomes more evident. When you're using very high tone flavour, it actually draws your eye away from what's on the bottom of the palate, and if you put a little bit of a lid on it, your eye, or the eye of your palate comes back down, and suddenly you're back in here as well, which is where the mustard seed's sitting, it's where the mustard oil is sitting. Oh yeah, that's better. There it is. I'm really happy with that. And the thing about relish too is, as it cools, it intensifies. So I'm going to cool this down, package it up. I might keep a little bit, Travs can take it home. But that was as long as this video. So it's probably like a 7-minute cook, and then some cooling time of a few hours. I wouldn't want to eat that as a meal, but I could use that as like a pseudo sambal, you know, to use for my dosa. I could run that as a little bit of a tadka through a dal if you wanted to have dal with a little more sort of pizzazz or expression, like not so soft and nurturing. You could easily marry that with a little bit of steak, a little bit of chimichurri on the side, a little bit of this tomato relish steak, and be beautiful. So there's all sorts of ways you can use a relish like this, because the mustard seed has a cross-cultural element. So it's used in traditional regional Indian cooking, particularly in the South, but it's also an aromatic that we're familiar with through Western cuisine, just through mustards themselves. So when you have those crossover aromatics, when you make a dish with that, the dish will then actually cross over quite easily between sort of culinary archetypes or frameworks. So it becomes quite versatile. And that's it. Sarina's tomato relish.